of us has a desire for justice within us. Each of us wants justice to happen in our lives and also feels the need to be fair to others. And a young man who is currently making a name for himself in Davos, a young man who has stood up and stands up for his justice, I would like to play him at the beginning of this video.
And I appreciate the World Economic Forum providing me the opportunity to be on this stage and say, fuck you, Klaus Schwab, and fuck your New World Order. We, the people, were born free, we will stay free, and you and all of your globalist friends, including everyone in this room, can go fuck yourself.
And with that, the young man in Davos tried to make a small impact on the world as an intern. He doesn't have much to counteract, except a lot of courage and the determination to implement things for himself. And in my opinion, he deserves to be shared. Share the video now, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and never miss a video from Investing Best again.
Don't forget, today our promotion ends for a one-time price for our Investi Best live event, the recording, where super exciting presentations by Dr. Max Otte or Barbara Colm and many others are still in. Today the topic was justice, and the young man really showed respect, courage. I watched the video several times, had to laugh every time, but I would say now let's get started with the topic. Let's go.
And the man expresses what many are currently feeling. And indeed, one feels a lot of injustice in the world, a lot of injustice in the states and also from the governments. And we are increasingly, repeatedly told one thing. From one group, let's say, of political color, we are told that yes, we must be solidary. We must finally be in solidarity and vaccinate in solidarity and close our companies in solidarity, collect our subsidies in solidarity and stop producing. Accept refugees in millions, take in thousands of violent criminals, stop breathing in solidarity, ideally for the climate, and then we will have restored justice. And the other spectrum, the far-right spectrum, tells us exactly the opposite. Yes, it addresses the many injustices in the world and says that it is unfair for farmers to have their benefits cut. It is unfair that the reconstruction of Germany is being co-financed in Ukraine. It is unfair that travel routes in Peru are financed by Germany, that in Africa, the equality of women is supposed to be established by Germany, and many other stupid foolishness of the German federal government, which is always financed with German tax money. And on one hand, we clearly have the image of these many injustices that need to be addressed. And on the other hand, clearly the only true path, which would say in the chaos, towards justice. But neither one nor the other is fair and just. Neither one nor the other will restore the justice that we all desire. Because one thing must be clear to us, if I take something from people against their will, regardless of their intentions, justice will never be restored, but further injustice will be fueled. No matter which government has what legitimacy for it. At the end of the day, this will further inflate injustice. And even if people meet in Davos, at climate conferences, at the UN in New York, or at many other elite gatherings, exchanging ideas there to discuss the next steps for a better, fairer world, how the future, the transformation can proceed, it always comes down to how one can take something from one side to distribute it fairly to the other side. At the end of the day, it will never be justice if I don't consult the people, if I simply decide over their heads, for the greater good, for their own good. And it must be clearly stated, the gentleman at the beginning of the video is absolutely right.
You, Klaus Schwab, and your New World Order. We, the people, were born free. We will stay free.
And if you now want to understand the larger context of the whole thing and want to restore justice in your own life, then you have to understand one thing. And the change takes place in three parts. The upheaval that we often discuss on YouTube and in many other areas takes place in three phases. Phase 1 was being able to take punches and endure. Phase 2, be fast and flexible. And now we have reached 2024 in this phase 3, in this final phase. In the next 2 to 3 years, a new world order will form. And even though it's called Agenda 2030, we will still lay the foundation for the next 2 to 3 years, lay the foundation for it ourselves, or lay it ourselves for this new world order. We must and should be aware of this urgently. What we will achieve this year, as a society, as individuals, that will be our reality. And we can continue to refuse to face a supposed reality. We can continue to complain about injustices in the world which undoubtedly exist. But we won't change that in that sense. We can only change things if we are ready to start shaping this transformation now in the final. Therefore, subscribe to the channel immediately, activate the bell, share the video immediately, and comment below on how your path can look like, how you want to shape it. And with that, we have to say, we are now in this final and keep making the same mistake over and over again. Many feel addressed by the left spectrum as to how justice can be restored. Meanwhile, I think even more people are attracted to the right spectrum, where the many injustices are clearly named and addressed. This will further draw attention to this injustice, always further into this imbalance of the ship, which we call our state or our society. It is being pulled further in this direction. And where we direct our focus, there our energy will be effective, and there we will get more of it. So if we continue to focus on these injustices, which undoubtedly occur, then we will continue to get more injustices. If we continue to write loudly that the new parties and the new leaders in the state and in the governments will restore justice, then we will get even more state. Then we will get more and more state and not less state. Then more regulation will be introduced, and at the end of the day, even more injustice, with the best intention, of course, but even more injustice will prevail, and not only in Germany, but in many parts of the world. And the game makers, these games that we currently see, no matter if they are sitting in Davos or elsewhere in the world and meeting, the others dominate the game for themselves. And they know that the game needs two poles: a right one, a left one, a good one, a bad one, a light one, a dark one, however one wants to name the whole thing. But with that, you can juggle nicely and always create another injustice to lure people back into the wrong waters. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now in large parts of the world, whether it's in the USA or in large parts of Europe. And with that, we achieve one thing: we create a focus on injustice, want to restore justice, and do not see at all that further injustice, further power and control is exerted over us. And that's why it's a clear matter. Let's focus on the constructive process. Let's focus on where we want to be effective. Let's free ourselves from the injustices, from the imbalances that we see in the world, and direct our energy to where growth can happen. Yes, growth can happen in many ways. Growth can work in real relationships with other people. Growth can happen from within the mental claim. Growth can happen in a spiritual sense through a deep connection to a higher authority. Minister of Economic Affairs Habeck, I think, will understand relatively little of it. But we should learn to understand it again. We should understand that it is not economics when we refer to a funding catalog and then adapt our innovations accordingly. Real economic growth is based on real innovation and knows no funding catalog, knows no Ministry of Economy where one can collect various payments. Real innovation is based inside us and when we connect as human beings. And there we should start, there we should focus, there our energy should go in order to finally get out of this mess, which we see in Germany and in large parts of the world to some extent again. Now is the time, 2024. Today, here and now, the time has begun for true entrepreneurs. Today, here and now, the time has begun for a new self-responsibility and independence that is clearly inherent in each of you. This creates a justice that can grow far beyond the extent we currently see. And then we have initiated a process that will not only bear fruit in 2027, but also throughout a whole cyclical era where people can find each other again in independence, in freedom, in true growth. Being able to build things in the connecting element and not being trapped in a divisive, inflammatory society that only aims to take something from each other, to expose injustice and then enrich oneself. That's enough for today. We at Investing Best, and you are warmly invited to become part of this success community, will shape this transformation. We will focus on bringing added value to society, bring an unmanned added value into society, and thus shape a new time, a new era.
I can only agree with Hannes on the topic of justice here. Do not search for the one and only person who ensures justice and improves your life more or less, but search for justice within yourselves and be a part of the constructive process instead of the destructive process that we currently see everywhere in the world. And all politicians, whether on the right or the left, are part of the disintegrating process. The topic of justice cannot be mentioned often enough. Many people feel treated unfairly. However, once again, the appeal is clear here. No one will judge for you except yourselves.
And one thing should be clear, relics from the past, like the World Economic Forum, like the UN, like the WHO, or like other connections where people meet, the copy, where people meet to distribute funds from others, are already subject to the dissolution process. Because one thing must be clear to us, these are all attempts, even BRICS or NATO, they are all just attempts, answers from yesterday. To answer with answers from yesterday to the questions of tomorrow. And this will not be a constructive process. This will never catch on. On the contrary, this will dissolve, because we have to succeed in delivering these answers of tomorrow to the questions of today. And then we will be part of the new reality. Then we will shape the new reality and thus build a better world to some extent. To each of you who wants to do it resolutely and courageously, just like the Lord at the beginning of the video, I say one thing very clearly. You are guided, protected, loved, and blessed on all paths of your life. But act and walk, there you have chosen this path, brave yourself.
And we'll see you again on Tuesday for the next live stream at 5 p.m.